Well, that was a crazy weekend of Champions Cup quarter-final rugby. I remember the days when quarter-finals used to be tense affairs, maybe low scoring, a real arm wrestle. Not anymore. We had a real tri-fest. I think we had over 300 points scored across 4 games, wall-to-wall attacking rugby. It was amazing. And sprinkled in, we also had a little bit of revenge, an understrength team, and to be quite frank, a little bit of a shock too. So let's get into it. Let's take a look at this weekend's rugby. And then also I will talk about who I see winning this competition as we go forward. So let's actually start with Sunday's game. So Exeter went to Toulouse to a very excited Ernest Wallan Stadium, which was absolutely rocking. And to be fair, they gave a really good account of themselves. They scored the first try, and probably 5 or so minutes into the second half, they were still leading 19-17. And, fair play, they were playing well. But then the floodgates opened. Toulouse did what we all know Toulouse can do, and they just absolutely ripped Exeter apart. I think they scored 7 second half tries, and it was just amazing to watch. Absolute beautiful rugby. And they were strong with the forwards, but just their backs and the lines they were cutting and just their dynamic running was immense to watch. And I think it's going to be that kind of attacking rugby that's going to give all of the other directors of rugby for the other semi-final teams absolute nightmares, because I'm not sure how you go about defending that. Whilst Exeter's effort was valiant and really hats off to them, they did give a good account of themselves. On the day, they conceded over 60 points. And it was a bit of a drubbing. And Toulouse were good all across the pitch in all departments. I thought Jack Willis played really well. He was really strong with ball in hand, doing his jackling as ever. Dupont was brilliant. And Paul Costas, what a game he had at outside centre. He's only 21 and he just looked absolutely sublime. So, Toulouse did what I was expecting them to do and probably what most people were expecting them to do, but they really did it with style as well. So let's look at the Saturday games, and I'm going to start with Northampton versus the Bulls. Now, bit of a controversial one, this. The Bulls decided to leave at home, I guess, many of their what would be considered senior or better players, the likes of Kurtley Aronson didn't come, Moody didn't come, LaRue didn't come, Goosen didn't come. And before we get into the game, I'm not sure I understand that logic. You're in the quarterfinal of a competition, the Premier European competition, I guess, Premier European and South African competition now, and they're not taking their best players, which is just a bit of a surprise. And I know Jack White, the director of rugby, was talking about they had to get players booked across 8 flights on 2 different days. And I absolutely agree that logistically that is a nightmare and makes the competition unfair. And that kind of rolling from the round of 16 into the quarterfinals with a week's notice is probably not the right format. But either way, I would have thought they'd have rocked up with their best players. They didn't. And they still gave a good account of themselves. It was pretty tight, I would say, for the first 25, 30 minutes. Bulls were kind of doing what Bulls do. They're kind of running some strong carries, sort of nice kind of breakaway tries. But Northampton just played beautifully. And they've been playing beautifully all season. All of Northampton's tries were tremendous. And basically, they did to Bulls what Bulls did to Leon the week before. They put 59 points on them. I know Bulls got 22 themselves, and fair play to them for scrapping away. But I thought Northampton looked great, although I guess you have to qualify it as a slightly understrength team. However, the thing that really impressed me was their dominance in the scrum in the second half. They were absolutely marching the Bulls backwards, and that became a real weapon and a springboard for attack for Northampton. And, Northampton have got some absolutely outstanding backs, but their forwards are none too shabby either. The likes of Coles, I thought, had a great game. And Langdon at hooker, I thought, had a great game. And I think those are going to be 2 players knocking on the door of the England team when it comes to summer series. But overall, Northampton played extremely well, absolutely deserved that win. It was a really great game to watch. And I think Northampton are kind of positioning themselves as a pretty serious contender for the Champions Cup. Now let's talk about the game I was most looking forward to this weekend, and I imagine most people were. Leinster versus LaRochelle. Obviously, was that round 4 of the battle between these two titans in knockout competitions. 3-0 to LaRochelle going into the game. Obviously, LaRochelle haven't been the same side this season as they have been for the last 2 seasons. But having said that, Leinster were magnificent. They absolutely dominated the game from start to finish. I mean, I think in the early parts of the first half, it was a little bit of a concern that perhaps Leinster weren't converting the pressure to scores. But they were relentless the whole game, absolutely relentless. And it wasn't really until we were in the red zone in the first half that LaRochelle fired a shot. They were just absolutely dominated. I think the thing I most enjoyed about that victory from a Leinster point of view was just their ferocity throughout the entire 80 minutes of the game at the breakdown and in the defensive line. There were some massive hits, some real hard-fought turnovers won, and they were just on the front foot all the way through. And, that scoreline of, was it 40 points? I can't remember if it was to 13 or to 17 in their favour was, an absolute landslide given the closeness of the games over the last couple of seasons. So absolutely hats off to Leinster, a dominant performance, much deserved win. I think LaRochelle off to lick their wounds. Interesting to listen to Ronan O'Gara in the post-match interview, talking about they're going to turn their attentions to the top 14 now. They've got ambitions to win that, etc., etc. And he did acknowledge, Leinster were by far and away the better team on the day. But I would have some concerns if I was LaRochelle because they just don't look like the side they were. Fascinating game. Really, really pleased for Leinster. You could see the crowd was so excited, the players were so excited at the end of the game, and good luck to them for the rest of the tournament. Now, let's talk about the first game of the weekend now. So that was Bordeaux playing Harlequins. And this is a dominant Bordeaux who absolutely tore Saracens apart in the round of 16. And they'd also torn Saracens apart earlier in the pool stages. And going into this game, I did not give Quins a hope. I'd have bet my house on them not winning that game. And I guess from a Bordeaux point of view, they didn't have Pernod, who's a massive miss. I think, he's not just a winger, is he? He pops up all over the pitch, beats defenders for fun, and I guess he just gives them such great forward momentum. So he wasn't playing. Nor was Jalabert again. Garcia was in, but Garcia was brilliant in the round of 16. I thought he had a decent game this weekend as well. So I think that probably wasn't great from a Bordeaux point of view, but they were completely rocked by Harlequins, who got off to an absolute crackerjack start and were 14 points up before you knew it. And they were playing the sort of attacking rugby we know Harlequins can play. Obviously, their game is all about attack, although sometimes their defence lets them down, but not on this occasion. Their defence was absolutely brilliant. They got really stuck in. They really worked hard for each other. Again, some big hits, some great rucking, lovely set piece work, and they were well deserving of their lead. And I think in the first half, it just wasn't really happening for Bordeaux. They were starting to claw their way back into the game, and eventually they started to get a foothold. And then they were starting to play the attacking flowing rugby that they have done this season, and were looking great. And then eventually they got their noses in front. I think it was 36-35 on something like the 65th minute. And then I'm thinking, okay, that's game done now. Well done, Quins. You give it a good go, but Bordeaux will take over from here. But that wasn't the case. Tyrone Green snuck in with a try. Again, a well-worked try in the 71st minute. Marcus Smith banged over a nice conversion, stretch it to a 6-point game, and handed it back to Bordeaux and said, come on then, let's see what you got. And Bordeaux, fair play, they scored a very good try with a few minutes to go. And it was a pretty kickable conversion that was on offer. But Luku, he just just missed out. It just sort of slid it wide. And yeah, that was game done. Quins win by 1 point. I think the final score was 42-41. Absolutely deserved by Quins. It was great to see how jubilant their supporters were in the stadium, how jubilant the players were. Historic time for Quins. They've never got through to a semi-final of the Champions Cup before. And yeah, no, absolutely well done to them. For me, it was a complete shock. Was not expecting that. I think Bordeaux will be absolutely gutted. I think there was a real chance for them to progress maybe to a final. So I think a Bordeaux Toulouse semi-final would have been very interesting, but it wasn't to be. So yeah, well done, Quins, on that one. And as ever, I would love to know what you think about those games. Were you as surprised as I was that Quins pulled off that great victory? Were you as surprised as I was that Leinster was so dominant over LaRochelle? I had Leinster down to win, but I wasn't expecting by 20 odd points. And also, what did you think of the understrength team the Bulls sent? What sort of, I guess, message is that to the competition? And what do the European professional rugby need to do about changing the format of this competition? Please do let me know your thoughts. So on to the semi-finals then. So on the 4th of May, we have got what I think will be an absolute classic game. We've got the best of the URC playing the best of English Prem with Leinster versus Northampton. This time at Croke Park. I think the Aviva was already booked out for European football. So it's going to an even bigger stadium. And yeah, I think it's just going to be an absolute crackerjack of an event. And I'll come on to my predictions shortly. And then the other semi-final on the 5th of May, Toulouse versus Quins. And this time it's in Toulouse, but it's at the football stadium rather than the rugby stadium. I think the capacity there is 30,000 as opposed to 20,000. So you'll get, another 10,000 Toulouse fans in there going mad for their team because they are one hell of a amazing set of supporters down there. So what a weekend of rugby that will be. I'm already excited by it. And I'm going to just give you my predictions now. And great to hear what you think about this as well. Now, when it comes to that first game, Leinster versus Northampton, I think we're looking at another tri-fest. I think we've got two great attacking sides there. But I do think that Leinster's experience in the competition, Leinster's, I guess, more pragmatic organisation about their attack, they've got, I guess, more shapes that they put together where Northampton is much more fluid. And I think the prospect of however many supporters, however many tens of thousands of supporters for Leinster will be at Croke Park, I think will just be a little bit of a bridge too far for Northampton. So I see Leinster getting through to the final. And then in the other semi-final, Toulouse versus Harlequins. Well, for me, I cannot see how Quins can win this game. Toulouse have just been playing beautifully this season. But then again, I said that for the Bordeaux game. So who knows what's up Quins' sleeve? But if I'm having to bet on it, I'm putting my money on Toulouse, which will leave us with if I'm right, and who knows if I will be or not, with a magnificent final of what I consider to be probably Europe's best two teams at the moment, of Toulouse versus Leinster. So let's see if I'm right. Again, love to hear what you think. Please do like and subscribe. Thanks for watching and see you on the next one.